Welcome back to Ask Mr. Franchise. Our guest today is known as the DOT, the Director of Training for Shoeless Joe's Sports Grill, Joseph Yaworski. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Joseph, you're new to the Shoeless Joe's team. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
You're bringing a whole wealth of experience and knowledge to training, and you're raising the training to a whole new level. And a lot of people that are going to be watching this video are really interested in learning about what it is that you do, your background, and how you're going to help bring our game to the next level when it comes to our next generation of franchisees. I want to start off with learning a little bit more about who Joseph is, your background, and where you came from.
Nice. It's a great question. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here at Shoeless Joe's. First of all, I grew up in Milton, Ontario. My parents are still there, so we're really excited to go back there in the growing city. But I went to school in University of Guelph, business hospitality, and then I worked for Disney right after university. So I was really excited right after university to learn guest service. I wanted to go to the cream of the crop, the top of the top, and I applied for Disney. So I was really excited to work down at Epcot in guest relations for about 18 months. Then after that, I moved to the cruise ship, so the Disney Cruise Line based out of Florida. So from there, I was the director of training on the cruise ship, and I also worked in guest services, and I did front desk as well too, so a front desk manager. From that, I was working for 4 months and then 2 months off, and 8 months, 2 months off. So I missed home a lot. So I worked down in Florida, but I had a lot of friends and family come and visit. But learning about guest service and learning about magical moments and learning what is the true value of a guest experience. So from that, I came home. In the last 5 years, I worked for Boston Pizza. So I started as a heart of house kitchen trainer, moved to the front house trainer, and then I was a training manager and then national training. So I moved up to Vancouver for a little bit. I did some store openings down in the States as well too. So with that knowledge of Disney and then with Boston Pizza, working with the franchise and training, I'm really excited to bring that knowledge here to Shoeless Joe's.
It's a really cool story. I did a lot of work for Disney in the late 90s, and actually we took
Nice.
the Shoeless Joe's company down to the Disney Institute in 2004 to help learn best practice, 2007, to help learn best practices.
Awesome.
So I know the best practices and the brand of excellence that it brings, and you're right about creating magical moments and those amazing guest experiences.
Yes.
Franchisees that are looking to invest in Shoeless Joe's have to go through an extensive amount of training. Something that I say whenever I give a presentation, which is 10,000 hours. It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at just about anything. It took the Beatles 10,000 hours of playing music. It took Bill Gates 10,000 hours of working at his computer. You can't give a person 10,000 hours of training to become an expert at running a restaurant. What do you give them to get them ready and competent enough to run a restaurant? Can you tell us about the training program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it's the hands-on experience, but also living the life of every person that has access to that restaurant. So let it be from a host to a server to a bartender to the kitchen staff to supervisors. You as a franchisee need to understand all aspects of that. So part of your training would be 8 weeks. So you're doing 4 weeks in the front of the house and then 4 weeks in the kitchen. It's the heart of the house. So learning everything. So from day one, you get a little orientation, welcome to the business. But from that, you are learning the aspects of being a host, greeting those guests when they walk in, being the face of that restaurant, and then actually taking some shifts. It's not a 9 to 5 training. You're here doing some weekends. You're doing some open shifts at 6 in the morning, doing some inventory. You're also doing some closing shifts as well too. So really putting yourself into the real life situation and also seeing the aspects of running a restaurant. So we do some classroom training. We also do some hands-on working as a server. You're shadowing a server. You're working behind the bar as a bartender. You're taking the manager checklist. You're going through the different systems, your line checks, your procedures, learning the systems. And then from that, also working with your staff and your team about hiring practices, but also getting your team to the next level. And that's the biggest thing, to kind of train to get the maximum potential from your guests to allow them to allow great service for the guests walking in the building.
Now you talked about creating magical moments.
Okay,
How do you tie that into training now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Magical moments for a guest walking in. They've had a long day. They're here having a great time. They want to enjoy the food. They want to enjoy the atmosphere. They want to enjoy you as a server, bartender, even as a manager. So getting to know those guests, talk to them. You're not here as order takers, you're order makers. You're trying to make sure that they have a great experience and suggesting different items on the menu. We have a new menu coming out. It's already out right now and it's fantastic. So with our drink menu, our food menu, and just those experiences, suggesting things to guests, talking about their family, talking about, hey, it's your first time here, that's awesome. Let me recommend a few things. Or you're living in the community, talking about their son or daughter in the sports community and trying to get them involved with the Shoeless Joe's in that community. And that's the big thing of creating that magical moment. We're not here just for the one time, and those repeat guests come into your building, and that's fantastic.
Now when it comes to learning, franchisees, people that are just getting into a restaurant, You know, a person walks onto a franchise show floor. I always say it's like they're deciding what they want to be when they grow up all over again. But the difference is they're not 18 anymore with limited knowledge. They've got all this life experience. They know things. And sometimes that's a bad thing, sometimes that's a good thing. How do you get them to be open-minded enough to receive the information you want to give them?
I think everyone wants to own a restaurant. Everybody wants to be a part of it and to have that ability to own your own restaurant is great. So you have your experiences, you have your outside influences, but coming into the Shoeless Joe's brand, into that restaurant, there's certain systems, certain procedures, certain brand that your restaurant is a reflection of all the other restaurants in the chain. So we want to make sure that all the chains have that high expectation, the high standards. So trying to make sure that they understand the systems and the whys behind it. So part of training, this is what we do a line check. This is how we do your opening and closing checklist. What's the why behind it, and getting them to understand what's the why. Oh, we just do it because we do it. No, there's just the whole, the old analogy of just meatloaf. So grandma made meatloaf, and all of a sudden she trained how to create meatloaf to her daughter, and all of a sudden she always cut off the ends of the meatloaf. So she always did that. So then the daughter thought, okay, when we make meatloaf, you always have to cut off the ends, no problem. And then once the daughter asked the question, why do we cut the ends off? Oh, because when I was older, we didn't have a smaller pan. We had to cut the ends off. So we just did it because we did it, but no, asking the why. Oh, I have a bigger pan. We can create the meatloaf in a bigger pan. And that's an analogy. You're just asking those questions why and doing those systems, understanding the core aspects of it, because your staff, your team, we ask them those questions, trying to understand how they learn and also to get them to the higher level. Everyone learns by verbal, but also audio, but also just hands-on training. So doing the training aspects of all those aspects, or doing training and all those techniques, is understanding that it's not just verbal, but it's also nonverbal cues of the role playing, the visual, but also the repetition, doing the homework, being present, and just the attitude and the atmosphere of being in the restaurant.
Now, nonverbal communication is 90% of communication.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing job fairs, for example, to staff a restaurant, how do you pick up on those cues to help pick the best employees that you're going to have in that restaurant?
Yeah, everyone's getting smarter these days to kind of trick you to, oh, hire me, look at me. I see all the things on YouTube or Google or whatever that what are the answers, what are the questions that people ask? But trying to find the right personality and the right fit for your restaurant, and that's the key thing. So there's certain criteria, but also just talking to those guys and giving them different situations that can be potential hires for your restaurant. We're trying to have people that have high energy but also want to learn, and trying to have that those key questions to understand about them and their personalities, not key specifics on their roles, but just them in general, just their the features of what they like to do, but to get them into sports or get them into just learning new things. Everybody wants to learn new things. I think everybody's trainable, but trying to make sure they have the right fit for your restaurant. Let it be in Leamington, or let it be in London, or anywhere around, that we have different aspects, different communities, all the way up to Napanee. So there's different aspects, or downtown Toronto. There's different characters and people trying to make that right fit for your restaurant, and everyone's trainable.
Now, you mentioned actually different fits and different dynamics of different restaurants. And Shoeless Joe's has restaurants in super urban settings like downtown Toronto, in suburban settings like power center malls, and in rural settings like Napanee, Ontario. Does the training differentiate based on location, or is the guest experience fairly consistent?
Very consistent, but it's the right fit for the right area. So a little specific, let it be if you're an afternoon busy for the lunchtime market, or the evening, so you're really into the sports in the evenings and getting your team, your staff, but the training is consistent across board. So even as a franchisee, you have your 8 weeks of training, so learning different aspects, but kind of being very specific to your region to maximize your team. Your staff members have a wide range of experiences, but also age groups as well too. So trying to tap into their experiences, but also to connect with them. So part of the training will be learning about the proper hiring techniques, but also about social media, and trying to figure out what is the best way to train your staff. So you're training yourself as franchisees, but also part of the training is learning how to tap into their training modes. If this is going to be like 5 hours of watching a PowerPoint, sitting in a classroom, that's boring. How do you make sure you tap into your team members and your staff? Let it be team huddles or quick, easy learning snippets, but also during hands-on homework, but also through repetition, just having the right attitude coming to work.
Now, my understanding is training is 8 weeks full-time.
Yes.
Then there's about 2 weeks for a job fair.
Yes.
Then there's 2 weeks of training for the staff.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that staff training that happens that leads up to the restaurant opening?
Yeah, that's a great question, because part of your training as a franchisee, you have 8 weeks prior to, then we have a job fair, and then once those your team members are hired, we have 2 weeks. So I'm going to be going to your store also with a team of other experienced front of house and also heart of house trainers on our corporate sports center. Come over to make sure that 2 weeks we're doing role playing, we're doing some PowerPoint, we're learning about the menu, we're learning about the culture and also the feel of Shoeless Joe's to get them feeling like, wow, I'm excited to be a part of the team. And then from that, we get specific on how to be a server, even role playing of walking around with a tray and then talking to guests, and also sitting down and serving each other and seeing the different aspects and how to upsell, what's the romance in the menu, and different aspects of trying to get that guest experience, and also through marketing and through operations in the kitchen and trying to see how everything fits together. We're one big team, so we have a lot of interaction between the heart of house, the kitchen, and also for the front of house to make sure everyone's on that same team. It's not one versus the other, it's one big aspect. So those 2 weeks that we're there is really intense, really trying to get the feedback and also the thresholds throughout that week to make sure that the staff get what we're training. It's not a data dump of here's the information, go, okay, we said it because they must have got it. No, we want to make sure every day that they understand what we're training and also they can train it back to us. And those are the checks throughout those 2 weeks. We have a little grand opening party and then we open the store, which is fantastic. And then we have 2 weeks of support after that. So training is ongoing even after we open. And then also you have your support center that makes sure that training is consistent.
So is it a big blow the doors off grand opening and then you're open for 2 weeks and you're there for those 2 weeks? You're giving that on-site support, or is it a soft opening that leads up to a grand opening?
Yeah, it'll be a soft opening, just to make sure that we have the right.
And just for those that aren't familiar with it, can you explain what a soft opening really is?
Yeah, we did it at Disney as well too. So learning the soft opening, we have a brand new attraction open up at Disney. We don't want to open it to the public. No, we want to make sure that all the bells and whistles, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. We make sure that it's proper. So same thing with the restaurant, making sure that the staff understand the proper greeting at the door, and also following the guests at the table, talking about their experiences and suggesting menu items and showing where the restrooms are, talking about the bar, getting those aspects, and also with the heart of house, the kitchen, making sure that they have comfort and also the confidence in making some of those food items, and then to a high level of standards. And then we have the grand opening party to make sure that those guests are really invited and really attracted to your business, and the reason why. It's easy to attract guests to your business, but then to those repeat guests, that's the big thing that we try to promote and to sell, and also to make sure that they have that fantastic experience. They can talk to their friends and family, they put onto Facebook or they go on Twitter and, oh my goodness, what a great experience. I want everyone to come back there.
Well, that's what I always tell people in seminars too, is the brand and the building and the marketing will get them in the first time, the second time, maybe even the third time, but after that they're yours to lose.
Yeah.
You've got to keep them by giving that guest experience and creating those magical moments.
Yes.
What type of ongoing training is provided to franchisees once they do open?
Yeah, it's a great question. Depends on the store itself. There's specific ongoing training. So we have bartender workshops, we have front of house service workshops based on your specific needs, but also we have head office specific needs, what to let it be for health and safety or workplace audits, just to make sure that your standards and systems are up to date, but also anything specific through marketing or through operations to make sure that you are properly trained. We have videos, we have online learning that we're creating. There's so many different aspects of training to make sure that the students in the stores and the people and the franchisees understand we're on the same page throughout that. So it's not just here's a manual, train, go, done, read it. No, there's constant training, constant continuous improvement to make sure that we have the best of the best, but also we have the checks and balances along the way to make sure.
Now you just went through something very similar to that with the new drink menu launch and then the new core menu launch.
Yeah.
So what was it like you're new to the chain, you're introducing this to the whole system, you're carrying the gospel of Chef Chris Lavisa.
Yeah. Great
and
guy.
how did they respond? How did they react? How was the learning curve embraced, and how big of a learning curve was it?
Yeah, change is always something that people get scared about sometimes. So, we're changing, but for a new menu, it's a big change for your staff that maybe have been there for a few years at the same thing, but every year we try to change it up to make sure we have the best of the best. So with the new menu, there's PowerPoint presentations, there's documents, there's tests, there's also feedback to make sure that those things are properly conveyed to your staff. So we have a new feature sheet coming out. We have a new menu to highlight some of those key gourmet burgers or flatbreads to make sure they know all aspects of the flavor profiles, about the additions, about different choices, so they can properly have the confidence, but also have the proper verbiage to suggest those items and what are the additions, what are the actual flavors, so we can ensure those repeat guests, as you mentioned, come back over and over again. So it's an ongoing training, but also the feedback through regional managers, we call them, and those are key individuals that go out to the stores to make sure that they're properly supported, but also make sure that ongoing training, but also that any launch for a new menu, but also systems are on the way. So I work closely with the operations team and also with culinary as well too.
I'm so excited about you joining the team because of your background. And one of the things that is so important in our industry is culture.
Yes.
And culture starts at training.
Yeah.
What type of culture are you seeing built? Are you seeing yourself build for Shoeless Joe's over time as you continue training?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this team. So with my experience within Disney and then with Boston Pizza, so having the culture and the right verbiage, the right language, make sure everyone's on the same page.
Because people think in language.
Totally, and it's your nonverbal cues we mentioned before. It's how you walk, the talk, and also how you just act in general, and using the verbiage of guest, the guest experience, the magical moments, having that great experience for those guests walking in. If they have an opportunity to suggest something or they have a question, those managers are walking to the table and doing 100% table touches. They're having that culture, and then also everyone watches the franchisee, watches the general manager, watches the people in leadership to make sure that they're doing the same thing, and then your staff and your team members follow along. So everyone has to be on that same page, and whatever the culture is that we're defining has to be across the board. So those key individuals within culture, all through your handbooks, through your seminars, through your verbiage, and also just being present in those restaurants. I like to pop into restaurants all the time just to talk to guests, but also with the staff, and just to go through it and experience what they're experiencing, and also seeing what they're writing on Twitter, seeing on Facebook, but also experiencing the real life situation, because it's easy to sit in an office, oh, here's how you're supposed to train, here's how you're supposed to do it, but actually seeing real life, and instead of here's the documents, follow this checklist, and all the managers are in the office doing stuff. No, being out there, being present, and having that right attitude to deal with those guests in those situations, I think that's key, and that's part of the culture, and making sure that those managers and people in leadership are out there with those guests and seeing and feeling what those, with your staff are feeling, but also guests.
Excellent. Now for a franchisee that's looking at investing in the chain, and they're thinking, why Shoeless Joe's? Yep. What type, am I going to receive adequate enough training? What would you have to say to them?
Well, 100%, more than you would expect. So you as a franchisee come on board, we would meet to discuss your opening training, and then we hire your with you, your kitchen manager, your general manager, and help with the job fair. So with that, right from day one, welcome aboard to the family, we make sure you're taken care of. So part of the training, you have your 8 weeks, and if needed, we have more training for that. So it depends on your experience. If you've had a restaurant experience in the past, or if not, we cater it, but also here's the bare minimum you have to do, and there's different checklists that we do to ensure everyone has to follow through the same checklist and the same training, but we could add different aspects to it to make sure that you get it, and also that you understand it. Same thing with the staff training. Great that we've presented it to you, but how do you make sure that you get it? And that's the big thing. How do you get it? How do you make sure, what's the call and response to that? Instead of saying, we sat down, we did it, check mark. No, we have our documents for 8 weeks to say that we've trained it, but also you as a franchisee, you sign off to say, yeah, I saw it and I understand it. Instead of saying, yeah, we did the 8 weeks, check, done, next. No, we want to make sure you understand it, and then you sign off, we sign off, and also there's an ongoing training. We have a certificate at the end. It's a big celebration to make sure that you understand it. That's the big thing, and you have the skill set to train it, but also to understand the systems and the whys behind it. That's the big thing.
Now, most recently, you had a franchisee, my understanding was, they had to break up some of their training a bit, and you weren't satisfied that they were 100% trained.
Yeah.
And I really respected your position on that. What did you do? Did you extend the training? How have you made sure that they are properly trained?
Yeah, we extended the training, and we made sure that when I follow up with them, they're in store doing the training. We're not in an office working the training. We're actually in restaurants, part of our core restaurants, learning from the managers, learning from the kitchen manager, learning from the general manager, learning from the staff, and then there's ongoing checks along the way. So a few days pop in to make sure, and at the end of each week we do a little recap of making sure that they get it. And a few times they didn't get it. So we have to make sure that what can we do to ensure that you get it, and we have 2 weeks or another week of training for this franchisee, for that person. So a few things that went under the door, and they had to go travel and do some things. No problem with talking to your lawyers or doing some things. We have some dedicated training that needs to get done. So we have to make sure that those gaps, if you miss it, that we fill those gaps. And that's the thing, instead of saying, oh, we were here on Tuesday, we did some training, oh, but they're on the phone busy, or they got called out to go talk to a few other people, so they left early. Those are the key things we want to make sure that they capture those training that they missed, and then we fill those gaps with it. So you say, oh, they were here today? No, but they didn't finish. They didn't see that experience working in the export area within the kitchen, the front of house, and seeing those the closers, seeing the open, what was the miss, and then make sure. So we extended that training, and And the franchisee was excited and that they respected that, but also realized, yeah, I need to know that. And then thank you very much for allowing me to see it, but also that I've learned it. And that's the check for us as a brand, but also for you as a franchisee to go through that. And it's standard across the board. That's where everyone's going through the same thing. So you can, I guess, have the confidence that everyone else that is a franchisee but also went through the same training that you went through.
Joseph, it sounds like the chain is in some really strong hands for the future and for training. So thank you very much for being here today. And thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on Ask Mr. Franchise. Our guest, Joseph Yaworski, from the Director of Training, the DOT, at Shoeless Joe's. And look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you, Shawn.